Naksa, Al Sutra Tutni Yamni. I greet you in the language of my people, the Miskito people that lives in Nicaragua and Honduras. I would like to thank the Melton Foundation for inviting me to be part of this conversation, especially today, because according to the Mayan sacred calendar, today is number 4. The Nahual of today is No, and it means wisdom, intelligence, ideas. It's a good day to have wise conversations and make wise decisions. I would like to begin thanking the indigenous peoples of this territory. For making it possible for us to meet here in Temuco. And I ask permission from the spirits and the energy of their ancestors so they can guide our conversation, they can protect us today, and they can help us be truthful to their thoughts, to their lessons, to their knowledge, and help us not to harm anyone with what we're saying today. I was born in a very small village in the Huanqui River. This is a magical river between Honduras and Nicaragua. And very early in my life, we were taught that we should protect Mother Earth. My mother, my grandmother taught us in our language that we should respect the elders, that our economy was based on sharing, on reciprocity, that the relation between men and women should be of complementarity, that if we really guarantee balance between nature and all of the different human and other beings, then we would be able to live good. And we would be able to protect this planet, not only for the indigenous peoples, but for all peoples. I grew up understanding that in the river, the spirits that protects water, forests, plains, and people lived, and we should be accountable to them. Cultural diversity has been a central part of my life. I really understood that I was different the first day I went to school, and I was not accepted because I did not speak Spanish. My parents, with the other parents of the Miskitos and the Afro-descendants, organized the school, the first school in our community, the first public school. When I went to the university and studied medicine, and I came back to my community, the first thing I understood is that they didn't teach me to take care of the indigenous diseases that the members of our community suffer. When people were bitten by snakes, we didn't have any medication. So very early as a medical doctor, I had to go to the traditional healers and invite them to come to the hospital and help me with my work to treat patients. And I also went to the villages and worked with them. My first lesson was that I should respect cultural diversity. I should learn the positive things of each one of the culture, but I should stick to my roots, and I should defend those roots. I worked in that small hospital for several years. I became a surgeon. I was an emergency surgeon. But I was the only doctor in 115 communities, so imagine everybody in the communities. I was the one that took out the babies, no? So I was the lapia, that is the name of the midwife, the lapia of everybody in the communities. But after several years, I realized that I was only solving the problem of 5% of the people. We didn't have any way to change policies and to change the structure of the state to address the issues that marginalized and discriminated my people. So we had the opportunity with the Nicaraguan Revolution to change that. We participated in the peace process. We had several years of war. So we organized the women in the communities in peace and autonomy commissions. We went and spoke with the two groups that were fighting, and we made them sign more than 400 peace agreements. And we were able to negotiate an autonomy law, a self-government law that was included in the national constitution. So in 1987, the National Assembly of Nicaragua approved an autonomy law that recognizes collective and individual rights for people that live on 50% of the Nicaraguan territory, for indigenous and Afro-descendants. For the first time, we were first-class citizens like the rest of Nicaraguans. We have over 30 years now that we are building our process of autonomy. We have developed different programs to have our own self-governed education system, medical system. We have a special legislation that recognizing equal rights for men and women. So we're building autonomy. In 1990, the government changed. And we realized when the new government came in that they did not respect the autonomy. They even call it piñata. Because they say, how did that government give 50% of Nicaragua to indigenous peoples? So we realized that we needed to join forces with other indigenous peoples from different parts of the world that were facing different problems, and that we should go to the UN and work at the UN to get UN instruments include indigenous people's rights. So we have been negotiating at the UN in the last 20, 30 years, and we have gained the ILO Convention 169. We have gained the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We have gained the First World Conference on Indigenous Peoples. And the four things that we have told the UN is we want to be able to speak through our own voice. We want to be recognized as peoples, and that means that we want our right to self-determination be respected and recognized. We want culture to be a pillar of development. And we also want our collective rights to be recognized. We have gained a lot at the UN, but we were not happy as women. Because if you look at the struggle of indigenous peoples in different parts of the world, you will see that women are in the first line. We are always there. But only men were speaking for us. Women were not fully recognized. So we understood that we had to struggle for women's rights from the community until the international level. So we started pushing for women to be included into the ancestral governance system in our communities, but also we struggle for women to become public officials in the governments and for women's rights, indigenous women's rights, to be included in the international instruments. And we have gained a lot. Just last week, the UN Human Rights Commission had a one-day discussion on violence against indigenous women. Different type of violence, from domestic violence until ecological violence, for example. And we were able to organize a movement of indigenous women. We have an international forum of indigenous women where we are addressing issues of political participation, issues related with violence against indigenous women. We have created AINI, a fund for indigenous women. AINI, it's Quechua language, and it means reciprocity, and it's based on the concept of intercultural philanthropy. But we have been struggling all of these years as indigenous women, but we understand that the struggle of women in general has been very important for us to gain rights. And if we look at the world in this moment, we can see that there are global trends that all of us are facing. So we began to understand that no one issue struggle do exist, because we don't live a one-issue life. We live as indigenous, as women, as educator, as a person with disability, as home workers. We have different type of issues, and we live all of those lives. So we began to make alliance with different groups. Alliance with the feminist movement. No, the feminists met about 2 weeks ago, and they agree that there's no one feminist, that there are different types of feminists, and the future is for all of these feminists to flourish. We have also been able to be part of global platforms that begin from the grassroots level, that addresses issues like climate change, food security. We are also part of a transnational movement. For example, you have heard about Black Lives Matter. You have heard about the movement to protect human rights defenders. All of these global movements are movements in which we are taking part, and we are playing a very important role. So my dear friends, global citizens, we have gained a lot, and we should be proud of all of the things that we have gained. But we have to recognize that there are these global trends that are impacting in our life. Every day, we have indigenous, African descent. We have activists from social movements that are being killed, that are facing a lot of problems because they are struggling for their rights. We have a model of development in our countries that has increased inequality between people. We have land grab. We have human resources grabs that have devastating effects over the life of our communities. Although some movements have been able to move from the binary discussion of gender to understand that gender is more than men and women, we still see a lot of activists that are facing a lot of problems. And we have to admit that climate change is a big problem that all of us have to do something to solve. So what can I tell you as young global citizens? I invite you to go beyond this concept of cultural diversity. I invite you to come out of your comfort zone, your silo, and begin to exchange and to understand that if we are going to change the structural situation, relation of powers, we need to join hands together in a global movement that can make power stronger. And for that, education is an important pillar. And you are in the field of education. And if you are going to continue working from education to change those power relations, we need you to address the issue of intercultural education. And we understand intercultural education not only as a dialogue between people that practice or have different culture. We understand intercultural education as a change of power relation in the education system. It means that traditional knowledge, other knowledge systems should have a place also in education. It means that the way in which we teach should be able also to change the mindset of all the people. It means that we should not accept hate crimes, hate language in any way. It means that we have to adopt a very affirmative way to address those problems that have divided us. So my friends, I invite you to join hands with Indigenous, with Afro-descents, with women, all of us together. Let's forget that we are in compartmentalized silos. Let's join our hands together and let's change the structure. If we don't change the structure, we will continue living different lives, but we will not be free. We believe in a world in which if all of us are free, then we can really change the world. We need everybody to be free. And for that, we need to change the education system. Thank you.